So, a quick show of hands. Who was at the opening of Sephora 20 years ago in Soho in this room?
Quite a few.
Hey, Pete.
He opened it.
I can remember the excitement of that opening night, the first store downtown on Broadway. And to prepare for tonight, I went back and I read WWD's coverage of the evening. So there was one source who said, quote, "This is going to change the way women shop for beauty." And there was some skepticism too. Another quote, "Down here in Soho, it will be phenomenal. But how is it going to fare when it moves to more competitive surroundings? How will it compete?" Clearly, we know the answer to that question. So, Chris, now that you've moved from market challenger to market leader in a world that's changing so quickly, how do you see Sephora's place in the overall global beauty ecosystem, and what's the overarching vision?
You know, as I listened to those quotes, that last quote was almost true. When you look at this video, it looks absolutely fantastic and looks very exciting. But early in 2000, things at Sephora were a little bit sticky, and it was tough. The investments to launch Sephora in certain markets of the world were extremely punishing. And there were a lot of people at LVMH that were telling Bernard Arnault to sell Sephora and to stick to luxury. And I think we know the long story is he stuck to it. And here we are, 20 years later, the business is almost 10 times bigger than it was then. We've had a good run. Since 2010, we've tripled the business worldwide. We're in 32 countries, market leader in about half of them, and number 2, number 3, 4 in a few others. But the answer to your question is whether we are challenger or leader, the attitude is still the same. At the end of the day, what we aspire to do is to delight customers better than anyone else. And whether you're the number 1 or number 2, number 3, if you keep very, very focused on delighting the customer, keep working with your brand partners to bring in winning innovation, you'll continue to delight them, get greater loyalty, and build market share. And so our attitude continues to be exactly the same. In terms of the vision, what we would love to do, our dream is to create the most loved beauty community. Beauty community is judged by our employees. We're 34,000. We are very proud that the vast majority are very engaged and very proud of working for Sephora. We love having great partnerships with our brand partners. If it wasn't for our brand partners, we would not exist. And lastly, and most importantly, is the customer. The more the customers are delighted, the more they love us, the more loyalty they have, the more successful we will be for Sephora and the whole prestige beauty industry. So that's what we aspire to do.
Calvin, the U.S. has grown into Sephora's largest market, with reportedly $5 billion in sales in both brick and mortar and e-commerce. How important is it to keep that challenger mindset?
Well, to be honest, we celebrated when we became number 1, but it was never our goal. It wasn't what we got out of bed and tried to achieve. So that notion of the challenger, I mean, as Chris alluded to, our whole position, focus, obsession is the client. It was as we started 20 years ago. It's really what shaped our innovation through a disruptive spirit, never stop attitude, remaining curious, and being very action-oriented. We've always sort of described that as our innovative DNA. And it's always focused at the client. So we were, through the 20 years, and we will continue to be focused 100% on the client over the next 20 years. And I think the results are sort of the byproduct of that obsession and the work that we do through the partnership.
And when you entered the market 20 years ago, you really radically changed the prestige beauty buying experience. At a time of so much change now, how do you see the in-store experience evolving, and how does it have to evolve to keep pace with the consumer?
Look, at the end of the day, there's all these stories being written about store retail is dead. We continue to invest. We continue to open stores all over the world. We're opening 100, 150 stores. It's how we build our brand equities, where customers come to discover what's new. what's great, what's interesting, what are the latest trends. We've upgraded our top 100 stores in the world. You might have seen 34th Street or Fifth Avenue. If you go to Singapore, you see Ion, Dubai Mall. But what we're investing more and more is the experience the customer has in stores. So all the work that's been done on beauty studios that Calvin and his team have pioneered, the classes that we do, the workshops that we do, the digital tools that we put in to make the interaction with a customer more interesting. It's really, really important to make your stores exciting places where people can come and discover what's new and interesting in the world of beauty. About 25% of our assortment every year in Sephora are new products. And so we have to really show them in ways that are fun, exciting. Calvin uses a line of people come to be taught, to be inspired, and to play. And I think that resonates really well. And the stores that do that well continue to grow. At the same time, we know that we need to invest in e-commerce, and we create what we call an omni-channel ecosystem. So it's a case of doing both. It's not either or.
And how do you see the role of e-commerce vis-a-vis the physical brick and mortar store?
They coexist. At the end of the day, the customers that love Sephora the most are the customers that shop online and in store. They'll go online through their research to see the reviews, to see the product ratings. They'll come in store for the experience. The relationship that they form with our cast is really, really important. And I use that expression sometimes, atawad, anytime, anywhere, any device. Let the customer decide. And it's a case of doing them both. And as we are in the prestige beauty industry, where touching and feeling and playing the products is so critical, the combination of stores and e-commerce is absolutely critical.
And I think that we've reported that e-commerce is about a third of Sephora's sales, but we're also seeing Amazon, quickly gaining speed in prestige beauty in the US. We're seeing Tmall in China. As their prestige beauty businesses become more significant, what impact are they having on yours, and how are you combating it?
Yeah, I think competition in retail, the client wins. When that happens in any category, in any industry, across all segments. And for us, Chris sort of shared our exciting vision to be the most loved beauty community. And in that, there are 4 strategic pillars that, we really focus on as a means to differentiate and achieve that. And differentiated product is a critical one. It's one that we think we can win in the marketplace. We want to keep making beauty personal through our loyalty program and CRM and the exciting initiatives we're doing. Again, one in which we think we can win. And then our in-store experiences and services across all of our channels. Again, an area where we think we can win. And I think what Amazon is doing for retail in general is it is forcing others to think of ease and convenience differently than what we used to think about it, and prioritize it where it's as important as some of the other innovation that might have taken the precedent and the lead. It's as important, and it's an area in which we're very focused on how we defend the areas in which we can excel and be good, be better. But it's definitely where it's shaping and changing most for us is it's shaped the ease and convenience strategy within our business.
And you mentioned a differentiated product assortment, and I'm wondering how you think about the brand matrix. In the beginning, when you came to the market 20 years ago, you were forced to establish a presence with indie brands. Now you have a mix of heritage brands, of indie brands, and emerging brands. And what's the thinking on that?
Look, the honest answer is there are no rules. There's no percentages. At the end of the day, we run a highly decentralized organization. We have fantastic merchant leaders all over the world. And in every market, region, people are making the right decisions in terms of what's the split between emerging brands that are hot on the scene, that are bringing a lot of excitement and bringing traffic to the stores. The heritage brands, where we've been in relationships with brands for decades and have fantastic partnerships. We have our own brand, Sephora Collection, that we use very much as an entry into prestige and also to excite the customer with one extra item in the basket. And every market will choose what is appropriate. At the end of the day, we want to delight the customers. So the brands that have the most exciting innovation will be the ones that will get the most attention. And at the same time, we don't have splits between skincare, fragrances. If you go to China, there's more skincare dominance in the store. If you go to France, it's more fragrances. Here in North America, it's more makeup. So it's quite complex. And our brilliant merchants over the world make the appropriate decisions. And what counts at the end of the day is the quality of the ideas and the brands that come forward with brilliant ideas that resonate well with customers tend to do better in our stores.
So Fenty last year was a global launch, and that was something that really resonated globally. And the brand got a lot of attention for, in particular, the foundation lineup, which had 40 shades. And we know that in beauty, it wasn't the first foundation range with 40 shades, but it definitely signaled inclusivity to the consumer in a way that really a lot of other brands haven't been able to. What was it about the Fenty execution that you think resonated so deeply with consumers?
Well, I think she's amazing. Whenever you sort of put a product behind Rihanna, but she's so authentic. And I think the products, she really put women of color front and center. And it's more than just about the number of shades. The undertones that she focused on were just spectacular and really spoke to the diversity that really played to that inclusiveness. So when you combine not just the range, but the undertones with the authentic message, with the marketing campaign, which was shot with that inclusive and diversity, and the power of her presence and social support, it was incredible.
How has that launch raised the bar for the other brands in this room?
I think it absolutely has raised the bar. It has raised the conversation of what it means to be inclusive. And I think launching foundation or other products today that don't pause and take a real look at the diversity of the marketplace in which you're launching, and you're opening yourself up to be criticized.
Just building on what Calvin's saying also, the success is not just in the US. The success in Canada, in France, Spain. We launched in Italy a few weeks ago. The brand got into the top 3 within its first month. Australia. The partnership's gone into about 18 countries. We can't supply enough, and it's a fabulous launch. It's very early days, but so far so good.
And did you predict that it was going to be this big?
If you...
Crystal ball time.
The fact that we're a bit out of stock on some shades sort of says that we didn't get it quite right. But it's probably running about 50% ahead of objective in the first 6 months. And so, long may it continue.
And overall, we're hearing reports that color is challenged. Do you agree with this, and how are you combating the softness?
Yeah, we all see market share data. So the fact is color is not growing at the same rate as it was through 2014 and 16, but it's still growing. There is still lots of opportunity. Quite frankly, we talk about the shift of 2014, 16 to 17 being sort of the shift of the gold rush to the beauty revolution, and we did see the client change in and around the behavior and the category of color in particular, and I think it caught some brands, flat-footed, if I'm going to be candid. When you come through that period of exceptional growth, you can do certain things in a certain way and experience, some success. And when it pivoted, there were, the pipelines, our social strategies, how we were presenting and talking about innovation in the new market, which is fundamentally different with Instabrands and choices, and what's happening with the blurring of masstige and prestige. So I think the dynamics have changed, but Sephora's set up to create demand. That is what our merchants do. So I am fully confident in color. It is growing. The partnerships are strong. What Allison and the teams are leading with the brand partners here. But we all need to change our game. And I think that's exciting. But it is different today than it was, and we all need to act differently. But I'm confident in the growth we're seeing and the continual growth for the category.
And just building on what Calvin's saying from a global perspective, whilst the market might have slowed down here, in other parts of the world, makeup is really booming. Mm-hmm. If you take China, the makeup market is up 30 to 40%. The lips are up 40%. In 3 years, the makeup business in China may double. So if you think of the challenge for our brand partners and ourselves is, how are you going to build the capacity to be able to fuel that level of growth? The other thing we're seeing is a lot of the cool indie brands that are being created in the States. They're resonating in places like France and Spain, that people before would have said, is this a US-only brand? Mm-hmm. And we're seeing quite strong appeal for these brands in Europe, in Southeast Asia, which is great.
And as the indie brands get snapped up by the big companies, are you seeing the same level of innovation that first attracted people to the brand?
That's a loaded question.
I don't. I think it's early days. It's early days, but the partnerships and the strengths that we've had working with them pre-post, I would say, is as good and as strong.
So, Chris, you just referenced China, and you've said that Sephora has the potential to be in every country on this planet. So, can you talk to us about the markets that you think have the most potential in your mind, what we might expect to see in the next 12 to 24 months? And let's start with Germany, because earlier you told me something interesting.
Well, Sephora is now present in Germany, is what I told you. Let me answer China. China is for the beauty and prestige beauty industry, is a fabulous opportunity. It's been a great opportunity for a while, but really in the last 3 years, it's really shifted. It's really step changed in growth. And so market was growing at about 15%, last year 30%, this year 25%. Our forecast for the coming years, it'll continue at this rate of growth. So it's a fantastic opportunity for the brand partners and for Sephora. Mm-hmm. The Chinese consumer wants to know what's hot. They're shopping in stores, they're shopping online. We talked about e-commerce. There's some extraordinary e-commerce capabilities being developed in China. It's not just out of the US. People like Tmall, Alibaba, JD.com, they're doing quite interesting things. Alipay, you go into many Sephora stores in China and everyone's paying on their mobile phones. And so I'm extremely optimistic about China. I'm optimistic about Southeast Asia. I think there's huge opportunities there. Mm-hmm. And Sephora is working very strongly with the brand partners to capture that and really grow the whole prestige beauty market.
And in Asia, are you looking at Japan as well?
I can't comment on future plans. I did say to you that in earlier conversation that I worked at, I think most people know, I worked at P&G for 27 years. One of the reasons to join Sephora was to take it globally. I thought it had the potential to be in every market in the world, that we'd be in 100 countries by now. It was gone a little bit slower, we're only in 34. But we're opening a couple of countries every year. And it's about the balance of, when you hear what Calvin's organization had done in the US, the business has doubled in the last 5 years. It's investing in the core, having very strong US, France, investing in very promising markets like Canada, Middle East that have been spectacular, building our position in China, Southeast Asia. We can't do everything, and so we've got to be quite deliberate. We want a strong core. We want to accelerate our progress in some of the markets, and we'll open a couple of markets every year, and we'll do it in a very steady, measured approach. But yeah, I dream of Sephora being present in every country in the world. Why not?
So, Calvin, your dream is equally as modest. You would like to double sales in the US after just having done so in the last 5 years. So what's the plan for doubling sales? Do you see growth coming from new categories, from services, from new brands?
I think it's going to come from all the above. The first thing, what's really exciting about where we're seeing a lot of our growth, and we anticipate to continue to come from, which benefits all of us in the room, is store comp growth. So we're going to drive more productivity in the stores we have. And a lot of that's going to come from new categories, new brands, and the success we're seeing in building on not just color. Skincare, as everyone knows, is on fire, and we really invested a few years ago in that business, brought the color model in of a skincare studio, of our Teach, Inspire, Play, investing in our cast, investing in technology to support the client experience in store, and we're seeing huge benefits from that. Continue to try to differentiate fragrance, which we are now doing after a few years of stepping back and really supporting exclusive and niche, which, by the way, is our color MO, and rolling that into fragrance. The last 2 years, we've gained share in a highly distributed and promoted category. So again, uniqueness in product. We're seeing great success in hair. Our hair is our largest growing business. I think it really is playing to the strength of Sephora again in terms of the product and differentiation. So really excited about building those out. That will drive the productivity of stores. But we are adding more stores, opening more stores this year than we've ever in the past, 40. We're going to open more stores next year. Where we open them are different. We are in the best malls in the country, but we are branching out into off-mall locations and having huge success. We're going to open more formats. So we've tested our urban studio concept. We opened our second one in Hoboken just 9 days ago, and it's going gangbusters in 2,000 square feet. The store is crushing what we thought it would do. So very excited. We see an opportunity of 100 of those, and those are small stores penetrating very dense neighborhoods, so we can get that walk-in traffic, completely complement our fleet doors, and more digital. So we're really excited about the levers we're pulling. We feel they're healthy. They're driving the productivity of the business. They're back to building prestige and creating demand. And we're confident and absolutely on a trajectory to double the business again, which is pretty exciting.